Hello, Savannah. Hello, 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 Savannah, and welcome to another edition of Candidly Kesha. It is so good to be with you all tonight on this wet Monday. I am happy to be joined by 6th District Commissioner A. Whiteley. Tonight, we want to have him bring us up to speed on what's going on the county end, as well as tell us about an upcoming meeting that he's having for the 6th District. Commissioner Ada, first tell me what have you been doing at the county level for the 6th District? We here at the city of Savannah, our city council, we get far more play than you guys get. And I don't know why. You are the county. We are Savannah, Georgia, in the county of Chatham. Chatham County cannot fit in Savannah. So what's the problem? And that's one thing I want to clear up tonight. I want everybody to know that it is the county who is most responsive for our city. Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am. Well, so thank you. It's an honor to be on the show. I appreciate you inviting me. And, I think maybe the county's not getting the play that y'all are getting because y'all are a little bit more interesting. I think maybe the city meetings could could probably get some ad revenue if y'all put commercials in the middle of the
I've
meetings.
been saying that. I've been saying that.
So, but on the county level, I think we've been pretty busy working on a lot of things. As some may know, the county is ultimately an extension of the state. So, oftentimes, some of the bigger projects, when we talk about infrastructure and things of that nature, are happening via the county or through the county because the county is has more direct access, if you will, to the state. Um, a few things that I'd like to say I'm proud of that we've been able to get done. One is reestablishing transparency as it relates to the county manager, county attorney, and the county clerk. We were able to. Up until last year, there was nothing codified, no city code, excuse me, county code that spelled out how the county manager was evaluated, or the county attorney, or the county clerk, or that the commission is responsible for that. And I think what that did, in a lot of ways, it rendered the representatives or the citizens of the specific districts voiceless. We have gotten a new county manager at this point. We haven't finalized his contract, but I'm looking forward to seeing that soon. But on our
And
past
who is that?
Yep. So our incoming county manager is Michael Kegler, who has been with the county for well over 30 years, has a lot of institutional knowledge. And in the middle of our term, I think it's best that we kind of go with somebody who knows what's going on rather than engaging in a 6 month to 2 year search for a county manager, understanding that that position, there's a lot of responsibility associated with it. So want to make sure we have
So,
somebody.
so you all decided not to go out for a national search for good measure. You decided to stick with someone local.
Yeah, I think so. At least I can speak for myself in that I felt like it didn't, again, if we were to go into a national search with so many things that we have pressing our community right now, going into a search would really distract our community in a lot of ways. And again, here we are halfway in the midst in our term, trying to go and find a new manager. I'm not saying is a bad idea, but at this point, I felt like it might not necessarily be efficient. We have things that we've been working on, things we've been trying to get finished. So to go with the steady hand at this point, I think was the best bet, and understanding that Michael Kegler will be the first Black county manager that our county has. It's an honor to be a part of that. And I look forward to working with them, but additionally holding them accountable. And so going back to where I said some of the things that we got done, I was with a bipartisan effort. We were able to make a change to the personnel ordinance that now states that the county manager, the clerk, and the attorney are evaluated annually by the Board of Commissioners rather than just one of us. Up until this point, the county manager, if he was evaluated solely by the chairman. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I felt like in that instance, it takes the voice of the citizens of the first through the eighth district. It silences it because they don't have a their representative has no hand in evaluating the key person, the key leader for the organization, the person who is
That's
the rubber
interesting.
meets the road.
That's
So
interesting because we I don't think we evaluate, or there are no guidelines that acknowledge evaluating our city manager. In addition, we've been in office 3 years and in a few days, 2 months, and we have had 4 city managers.
right. Well, see, and how does that make you feel, Alderwoman?
More than how it makes me feel, I am concerned about the city of Savannah staff,
Right.
because our city manager is the chief executive officer of the entire city administration, and the staff reports to the city manager, and so we've had that constant changing of the guard, and our staffers have been expected to change with the guard. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, and
But so
so
kudos to you for making that decision.
yes, ma'am. And I'll say, with that in mind, that's why going forward with Mr. Kegler was part of our decision in saying, you know what, let's try to keep things steady, at least for now, and let's try to finish what we've been working on because that change it doesn't bode well for staff and their mindset. It doesn't bode
Hmm.
well for the community overall. So I can
Right.
understand the frustration associated with that.
It definitely it's very, very unnerving for us, but we get through it. So listen, in talking about what we've been working on, you and I kind of joined forces and collaborated to increase offerings of recreation opportunities through the county and the city. And you have been successful in some regard. And I want you to report on what coaches, little league players, as well as their parents could look forward to. But I'm excited on this end that we were, for the first time, able to garner serious, tangible resources to put toward our recreation so that our children are not on the streets in the median selling water and washing cars for uniforms. And so now the city of Savannah has allocated $250,000 to our little league teams and coaches, as well as cheerleader coaches, because we are equal opportunity supporters. So the same for cheerleaders. There should be support for each of the teams associated with the city of Savannah. And if not, please contact me or contact our city manager's office or the Department of Recreation in Savannah. But tell me how what you did on the county end is kind of meeting us halfway in terms of what we are able to do for recreation in Savannah.
Yes, ma'am. Well, so first, I want to just applaud your efforts and your council's efforts in actually making that happen as it relates to some money getting to these organizations. A lot of folks don't understand that these coaches are volunteers. These organizations are paid for by the parents and the generosity of the people in our community. So to see the city allocating some dollars to these organizations, to those who are engaging with our youth is huge because if we don't invest in our youth now, we're going to invest in our adults later. And it might
Mm,
not be in ways we want to. It's going to be jails, it's going to be courts, it's going to be law enforcement, it's going to be other social programs. So I applaud that. One thing we were able to do with the commission, and I'm very proud to have spearheaded this, was being able to create a new setup to where if you are a organization that is comprised of 80% or more of Chatham County residents, during the daytime, you can use our fields for free as long as they're not allocated to somebody else. So,
mm,
again, I know it's a little bit convoluted, so let me back it up again. If you have a youth organization that is engaging our youth, and you are holding a practice, not a money making venture, not throwing a tournament, not holding something where people got to pay, not that. If you're holding a practice and during the daytime, you can use our fields up to 2 hours for free as long as you go and register with the Chatham County Recreation Department. You'll put down your groups, addresses, and stuff like that. So as long as 80% of the members of your group are Chatham County citizens, you will not have to pay to hold practice on our fields. As
Okay.
long as they're not again scheduled out to somebody else. There should not be a cost to engage our youth. There should not be a cost to
Right.
engage our youth. We should not politicize engaging our youth. You know, these are tomorrow's workforce, tomorrow's leaders, tomorrow's voters. Again, if we don't invest in them now as youth, we're going to invest in them later as adults. So that was something that I was able to work through, and I applaud and appreciate my colleagues on the commission of supporting that. It was a change to the revenue ordinance where we did that. So if you were to go and look at the Chatham County Revenue Ordinance at this point, you will see that change reflected. And I'm very proud of that as a father of youth who operate in this county, as a coach, as a person who engages our youth and feels strongly and passionate about our youth. I'm very proud of that.
Well, and it's important, Commissioner Whiteley, because uh, we have an opportunity to create proactive measures whereby we are preventing some of the social ills that come with uh, the pitfalls that our youth find themselves in. And it's a no brainer. It's an absolute no brainer. And I am challenging our local government, our city manager, and our council to do more. If we have a developer who in 55 minutes can win 3 contracts that total nearly $9 million for brick and mortar, what more should not we be doing for our youth? And so for me, there is a continuous investment between the Board of Education, the County of Chatham, as well as the City of Savannah. We are continually being guided and led and finessed by developers, architects, attorney firms with these brick and mortar projects, but we are giving very little regard to flesh and blood issues in our community. And unless we, as sitting elected servants, start to recognize our power and authority to make that shift, our community is really not going to be much different from what we see now. And so, both on the county level as well as on the city level, I want to see more crime reduction. I want to see less evidence of how much homelessness we actually have in our community. We want to see less forced displacement from our city, from our county. And we can only do that when we are making investments in people and less investments in things. And so I am encouraged that you are going forth with that mindset on the county level, because it really does take somewhat of a trifecta of an approach to combat some of what we all share. The most glaring issue that I see where there can be more collaborative effort, I just left the Yamacraw um, uh, survey meeting for residents and those who are interested in saving Yamacraw. There is a petition by the Housing Authority of Savannah to demolish Yamacraw. And we have a local advocate and his family and other local activists who have petitioned via the courts to stop the demolition of Yamacraw. And so we had an opportunity to go out on Saturday, previous to the meeting today, to inform individuals of the meeting, but also to share or to give insight into what that survey looks like. And the conditions that we found there were deplorable, absolutely deplorable. It left me feeling hopeless and helpless where those families were concerned because we couldn't do anything about it. Although it's the Housing Authority of Savannah, that entity, the leader, as well as the board of the Housing Authority, have become so insulated. We really are left to the will of the mayor and the city manager as to what and how much we can do to make some changes there. But more to the point where you are concerned, with regard to Savannah being in the county and both governmental entities being partners with the Board of Education, the majority of the residents in Yamacraw and all of our housing developments are children, are young people.
Mhm.
They are young people who are being parented by hardworking moms and dads, but the conditions that they are living in are far less than what is acceptable. And so I know that the Chatham County government are, you all are recipients of ARPA funds to the tune of about over 50 million in the next 2 years. The city of Savannah, we already are received about 25 million. We'll get another 26, 27 million in the next 2 years. And the Board of Education, I think, over the next 4 years would have received 95 million, and the housing authority about half of that, if not more. And so in my mind I'm thinking, Commissioner, what isn't it, you and I came together with this recreational piece and sort of made some stuff happen. What isn't it that these four entities with all of these resources could not have done to come together and say, you know what, we have this common factor
Mhm.
in our communities.
Well, excuse me. So first off, I wanna address the Yamacraw piece because and I'm asking for you to correct me if I'm wrong. So it is my understanding that Yamacraw was built a long time ago,
Hmm.
and now is currently soon to be redeveloped. Am I correct?
Well, that was a plan. A plan was submitted by the Housing Authority of Savannah to demolish it. And with that demolition request came a lot of scrutiny, judgment, and concern, high concern, and paranoia, a lot of it, because the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. So the thought was, because Yamacraw uh, is in close proximity to, well, it's in downtown Savannah, and it's in a very coveted corridor of downtown Savannah and in our tourism district. So the thought was that this would be yet another public property hijacked, much like Chatham Apartments, and they didn't want that. So Larray Benton and his family, as well as Willie Stevens and some others, they got busy. They got busy doing research and working to save Yamacraw. And so ultimately, a lawsuit was filed. And as a result of the filing of that lawsuit, the demolition has been halted and is now sort of tied up. But it's my understanding that HUD has already ruled and objected the or rejected the demolition request.
Mm. So with I know you said that and I got an email today that showed some very um, bad conditions over there.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I guess my concern is okay.
Commissioner Lockett was at the meeting today too. I should add that.
Okay, well that's good
Mhm.
to hear. So when you say that the conditions aren't good, right? Um, I know that a lot of people who have been moved out of Yamacraw have been moved into a community in my district out here off of Gateway. How long do are we supposed to leave it like that?
Right.
There's only so much that we can fix up. This was built a very long time ago,
Hmm.
and
And
so
that was the unanswered question tonight, Commissioner Whiteley, because I stated, between deciding on if it's going to be demolished or not, and sort of navigating through all of the arguments, families are still living in squalor. They are still living in mold riddled conditions. They are still living in units that are infested with bugs and rodents, And so I asked the question that went unanswered and learned that nearly $30 million since 2016-17 has been allocated for just renovations and repairs, but still to no end. nothing has been done. So I said, well, do these families have to hang in the balance of these conditions while we are deciding on the demolition? Um, and Pastor Small was there at the meeting. And just to bring you up to speed a little bit, Pastor, I was just sharing with Commissioner Adot Whiteley that there were no responses to the question that was asked. Okay, I get it. We have to go through these processes of deciding ultimately what's going to happen with demolition or no demolition, or renovation or no renovation. But what do we do right now today about what we saw on Saturday?
So another question I have, and how you doing, Reverend Smalls? It's good to
Hey,
see
my
you.
friend. God bless.
So another question I have, it's my understanding that there was a, where'd she go?
Don't worry about it.
I'm,
Go ahead.
I'm still here.
Oh, gotcha. So it's my understanding that um, there was at least some plans for another development to be placed in that area. Is that correct?
That's right.
And that development um, was was being spearheaded by a local businessman. And so my question was, if I remember correctly, at some point this gentleman was vilified, and so my question is, why is he vilified if he's trying to improve an area that is going to benefit the community that's there? Or was there a fear that those folks are going to be displaced forever? Because I mean, even if they do a huge renovation at Yamacraw as it is now, $30 million hasn't cut it up to this point. So even if they do a huge renovation of more than $30 million, it doesn't seem like it's going to do the trick. So at what point do we say, you know what, enough is enough? Let's rebuild, but still maintain the historical value and significance of Yamacraw.
That's not what the plan was or has been. The $30 million was basically for the entire system, not for Yamacraw. That's the first thing. Okay. Secondly, the commercial development that was involved would have not been to rebuild for some better housing there. No, it would have been we're gonna develop the area, but we're gonna move these people. So this there wouldn't have been a project there. This was a demolition. Okay, and under the rules, and this was brought out tonight, under the rules, in order for the housing authority to demolish this property, they would have had to have presented what they were going to replace it with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And therefore, what most people don't know, and it has, a lot of times the bad news always travels, but the reasonable and good news, hardly anybody knows in Savannah the fact that the demolition permit that the city of Savannah, through the housing authority, was seeking has been rejected by HUD. Yamacraw is not being this. They're still saying Yamacraw is being demolished. Yamacraw is being demolished. They knew months now that that demolition petition had been rejected. It's gone. Okay, so now what? Now actually Lorraine Benton is forcing their hands. They would have not done any of this. They never did any of this for the other projects, garden homes and other things. They didn't do this, and always promised that we're going to take the people out. And when we finish and we got more housing, we're going to bring those same people back in, and they'll be better off. And it never, ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that was a part of the discussion. Now, to me, it is a foregone conclusion that they cannot displace the people from the project at this point. The other thing people need to know is they came up with a bogus justification for the demolition from the beginning. Now, I'm not privy to the reasons that HUD rejected their demolition proposal, but I do know that in their application for the demolition, They said it would take $40 million to rehabilitate up to living standard these 315 units. Mathematically, that is $173,000 per unit. You
That's
could build them back for $173,000
that's
if you want.
ridiculous.
Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is people who've never been in Yamacraw. See, that's the other thing. A lot of times you have to go to a place and sit in there for a little while, and you'll notice things that other people don't see. Okay, particularly if you're a contractor, and I was a general contractor. So the thing that most people don't know about Yamacraw buildings are built to last forever.
Mm.
Yamacraw does not have sheetrock interior walls. Yamacraw does not have um, 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 like studs in the walls. The interior walls of Yamacraw Village are made of 4-inch concrete block.
Mm.
There is absolutely no reason to ever tear down those buildings. Even if you decided to take the roofs off, put new roofs on, all that structure would still be there. It
Or you
doesn't.
could take the roofs off and go up.
No, you can't go up because the foundation was not built to go any higher.
Okay.
Nevertheless, and that's the advantage of being a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, they use, listen to this, the stupidity. They use the excuse and got away with it that the reason they had to tear down Francis Bartow was because of termites. There is not a termite on earth that can eat concrete block. It doesn't exist. Nor, because we do have subterranean termites in the region, again, I was a contractor, you treat the ground, you kill all your termites. But a termite, no matter who he is, will never climb more than 3 feet from the ground. If he doesn't find wood to eat, by the time he's at 3 feet, he falls to the ground and dies. There was no reason for them to tear down that housing project, except for people speculating, trying to do what they're trying to do now. Make sure you understand the purpose for this whole discussion was to tear Yamacraw down and come in with commercial development with the excuse that they're going to move the people somewhere else. I apologize.
Good.
Okay.
Well, I know a
Well,
large number of the folks who were moved again were moved into my district, and I guess my question is geared towards just understanding. Again, I learned something there from Reverend Smalls. Understanding, I get where you're saying. Okay, there was a back. It seemed what seemed like a backhanded way of trying to demolish him. What's taken so long to upgrade them to where there's not those deplorable conditions that we see in our email today? What's taken so long to get that done now? And even if there is a rebuild, do the taxpayers pay for that?
Well, let me answer both questions. First of all, um, my statement tonight in the meeting was that housing project is in the state it's in as a result of willful, premeditated neglect.
mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a purposeful plan to let them go down to the extent that you would have the excuse to tear it down and remove the people. Now, why they would want to do that so vigorously, I have no idea. But that's how this has been going. Let me give you an example. If you've got two whole housing projects on MLK next to each other, you've got Caton Homes and you've got Fraser Homes. A lot of people in those projects, a lot of houses. Rough guess you would need about 10, maybe 12 maintenance people to cover that much property and keep it up. They've got two. I'm not talking about had to. They've got to now. Two people. 2 people.
Hmm.
I'm not telling you what somebody told me. I'm telling you what I know. This is willful neglect of the housing properties because they are extremely valuable locations for commercial development that will run into tens of millions. That's facts. You build a motel or you build a hotel on that property, or 3 or 4 hotels on that property, they fly through the roof.
Hmm.
You know that from being involved in county business. That's the purpose. The purpose is to make the rich get richer and let the poor see if they can make it. They're systematically getting they systematically got people out of the housing projects on the east side. That's Fred Wessels and Hitch Village. Whenever they got ready to upgrade them and do stuff, because they wasn't gonna move them in other places. So if they were late on their rent, didn't pay the light bill, didn't pay the water bill, window got broken, they didn't fix it, you gone. And you would go down during the time they were doing that. You would go down to the magistrate court, and I know it because I was there. And you would see the housing authority people come in with a little list, and folks who couldn't afford to go anywhere else would be dispossessed of where they were.
And the system was working against them.
And what we're going to do, and what we're doing here, and this is Adot, you know by now, and we've been around each other. You know by now, I don't have an agenda for small, but I do have an agenda for people, and that's not black people. That's everybody. Everybody I see hurting, and everybody that I see the system may very well take advantage of that can't fight for themselves. This is what's going on here. LeRae Benton, and I'm gonna say his name. I'm gonna scream it aloud. I'm not gonna wait till the knee is on his neck and he die on the street. He's standing up. He's speaking up. He
Mm-hmm.
grew up. Listen. He came out of Yamacraw.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nuclear physicist. Come with me, somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That young man could do anything, go anywhere, and never look back at Yamacraw Village. But something on the inside has him caring about the people and the place of his origin,
Mm.
the ground of his nativity, the soil from which he sprang, still beats in his heart. And tonight, oh my God,
Yes, God.
I've heard kings speak. I heard kings speak. I've heard Joe Lowry, Andy Young. I mean, I've heard magnificent preachers from all over the world.
Yes.
Nobody was as effective speaking than LeRae Benton tonight.
Yes.
He knew the law, he knew the rules, and he had the heart for the struggle. And I'm telling you,
And he has put his personal money
oh yeah,
behind
yeah,
advocacy.
yeah. This, and don't I know that fighting these fights in court is not free.
Mm-mm.
But if you don't have if you don't have something you're willing to spend the money God blessed you with, I'm not talking about your money. I'm talking about the money God blessed you with,
Yes.
and you're probably not worth your soil.
Right.
So I
And
don't,
so
you know,
if you all want to see what Pastor Small is making reference to, you can go to my Facebook page or Alderwoman Blakely's Facebook page or his Facebook page.
on my Facebook page.
They were live about an hour and a half ago, and you could see that there. But that brings me more to the county side of things, Commissioner Whiteley. One of the reasons why we were advocating so hard for loss to be negotiated and we advocated against T-SPLOS was because of the adverse implications as it relates to people being forced out of the city limits of Savannah and even the county in some regard. If that loss negotiation did not go through by December 31st, we would have been forced to raise taxes to the extent that would have yielded the largest act of forced displacement this community has ever seen. notwithstanding the fact that people are already being forced out of Savannah as a result of the majority on our council failing to roll back the millage rate for at least the last 2 years of our term. And so, as a result of that, individuals are now facing rent increases, even if you are a renter.
That's right.
Renters are actually feeling it a little bit more than homeowners because homeowners are having to pass on that increase to renters. So in the past, we would hear of rent increasing annually. You could expect anywhere between $25, maybe $75, between $25 and $75 annually. Now, citizens of Savannah have experienced rent increases from $300 to $500 with just 2 months' notice. And this is causing
More than
people,
that, they're higher
well,
than that.
yes,
Because
it will. The
you got
rents,
they
rent.
come to the church for help.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, and I'm telling you, $600 to $700 is not unheard of.
mm-hmm,
And who can do that?
right,
Even people who are buying out. If your mortgage went up $700 instantly, you may very well not be able to stay in that house, even if you
right,
buy.
Right.
And
right,
and
So
renters, of course, are and right now the increase in the rent for some people swallows up what they'd pay if they were buying a house.
right. Well, and I said to someone, if I hadn't had a mortgage for the last 14, 15 years or so, I would not be able to afford a place to stay in Savannah. A two-bedroom apartment right now is renting more than my mortgage right now.
That's
Um,
right.
so, Commissioner Whiteley, I just want to thank you because you were one of the members on the county end, one of the main persons on the county end who actually reached outside of those meetings and took time to talk to me, talk to other alderwomen, Blakely and Lanier. And we impressed upon you how important it was to get this negotiation settled. And of course, there was some additional pressure by other activists in our community um, to say, okay, boys, stop behaving badly. The acts that were conducted by Chairman Ellis and Van Johnson was just embarrassing and ridiculous. And I really believe that between T-Splosh and Loss, it was all a game. But the people who are feeling the pain of the game are the citizens of the county and the city.
well, so I appreciate that recognition, Alderwoman Gibson Carter, and I'm happy that we were able to get to the finish line with loss. I hate that it took so long to get there. Now in reference to T Splosh, I want to talk about some things because you and I had this conversation before. And don't get me wrong, I understand when we talk about regressive taxes. I mean, you just spoke about how we're seeing increases that are due to the national economy, which trickles down to the local economy in a lot of ways. Not to say that the local economy doesn't have its quirks too. So I'm not trying to negate that. But I'll tell you this, and I've been saying this. I've been saying this even when I was running for the 6th district back in 2020. I believe we should use T-Splosh to fund fair, free ridership throughout the county. Again, I believe we should use T-Splosh not only to plus up our roads, widen roads, congestion relief, and things of that nature, but we should also use it to fund our CAT system for fair, free ridership throughout the county to help mobility, to remove one more burden. Now, when it comes to T-Splosh, I think that one of our biggest challenges was that we didn't do a good enough job of explaining some of the details. However, perhaps it'll come back. Who knows at this point? But again, if it does come back, you will hear me shouting from the mountaintops, fair free ridership when it comes to T-Splosh, because if we're not going to take care of the least of those and those who don't have a vehicle, if we're not going to look 10 and 20 years from now and say, we're soon to be the size of Atlanta, as they are now. If we're not looking forward, then we're only going to see issues just like this as it relates to our communities being underserved, as it relates to inflation happened in certain areas, property values skyrocketing and moving Aunt Essie out. We're going to continue to see that on a larger scale. Now, I will say, as it relates to Lost, that's something that takes place every 10 years. And the county's piece was, we do have some expenses that are coming on board. As if you're downtown, you see that trial court building being built right now. We're going to have to pay to fund that, to run it, to power it, to clean it, and so on and so forth. And so we'd rather share that cost with our visitors rather than put that cost on the shoulders of county citizens. Again, I hate that it took so long for us to get there as it relates to some sort of agreement, but I'm glad we were able to get there, because that's one less thing we got to worry about. We got enough to worry about.
Well,
let me do something, because me and ADOT are friends, and people, y'all need to know this, okay? A lot of times we disagree, but we do it very friendly
and respectfully.
We always have each other's
ear. And I welcome it, Reverend Smiles.
But we always have each other's ear now. Some of what he said makes some sense, except for the problem with the more money they have taken in, city and county, property tax ain't going down. Now they keep saying, if we'll tax this, or we'll tax that, or we'll get this, we'll get that, and I don't see it move.
Well, in all fairness to they did roll.
Hold on, Kesha.
No, they did. No, they did.
The county rolled back taxes.
The county rolled back the taxes, but watch now. Because I be reading. So the county rolled back the taxes during the same time.
What's that fire fee?
No, I ain't talking about that. I was gonna keep that done. I was looking out for you.
I got time.
Listen. The county rolled back the taxes, and they did it rightly compared to the city during a time when property values soared.
Right.
So in terms of the tax, you're right. The tax rate was rolled back. The taxes were not decreased because the property value soared. That's what I was saying, and that's why I was telling people. Me and ADOT can agree, because all we do is get down to the way the facts are. Now I can't help y'all on that fire tax. I can only tell you, they passed it in the city. We fought it. They realized they messed up. They took it back. I'd
love to share some insight on that.
Okay, please.
All right,
I would not take credit for that, Ada. I would.
When we get elected, we gotta accept the wins and the losses. And if there's one thing that I've learned in my life in the military, as a parent, as a father, accountability is real. And so I will say that we perhaps could have done some things different. I want to share some facts that many people may not have known. First of all, because I also sit on the Chatham Emergency Services Board. All right. The reason the fire fee came out right at this point, it is not a tax. First of all,
it's a fee. Everybody got to pay it. It's a tax.
No, it's a tax is based on property values. This is not based on property values, but we could argue that a little bit later. One, the Chatham Emergency Services had been reaching out to the county since 2017 in reference to the need for help, because Chatham Emergency Services has an ambulance wing and then has a fire wing that covers the unincorporated area. Since 2017, they had been reaching out to the county commission. I was elected on November of 2020, and one of the first things I heard about 2021 was this fire fee. So we had to address it at that point. Now, as it relates to what we had to do at that point, we were in the midst of a firestorm. No pun intended. We had to make a decision, because Chatham Emergency Services was ready to give up fire service altogether, because they funded fire service solely with subscriptions. So if they only had a 75% collection rate, so of 100% of people who were being billed for this fire service, which is how they pay for the service, only 75% of the people were paying. Again, they had brought this to the county's attention. but we finally got to it in 2021. So the next question is, okay, do we let unincorporated go without fire service? That's one option. Do we create our own fire department, which is another option, or do we try to help salvage this situation that we have? And in this instance, our best option was to try to salvage. Why? Because the county had not been proactive, and you'll hear me talk about that a lot. Proactive, cast vision. We hadn't been proactive in preparing for this situation. Chatham Emergency Services is a nonprofit, is a private entity, is a nonprofit who had been providing this service. And as long as everything was good, it was good. But then once it got bad, the county had not acquired any fire assets. We don't own any fire stations. We don't own any fire trucks. So if we wanted to even try to RFP fire services, we couldn't do so. We didn't have the infrastructure to do so. So we were forced to work with Chatham Emergency Services. Another point I'd like to make as it relates to Chatham Emergency Services, they're an open book. Their information is on the website. On their website, again, they're a nonprofit. Their budget is about $13.3 million, and Chatham Emergency Services has 2 less fire stations than Savannah Fire. Again, I'll say that again. The budget for Chatham Emergency Services is about $13.3 million, and they have 2 less fire stations in Savannah. Alderwoman Gibson Carter, you know how much the budget for fire for Savannah is?
Mm-hmm.
Over 30 million.
Yeah.
So when it comes to bang for the buck, if you will, we could debate that. I won't go over who's better.
How much of that 13 million is allocated for 911 services?
None of it, because fire service is one thing. 911 is a county responsibility.
Okay, emergency services. So for emergency services, how much for 911? Because that's the biggest issue right now for Chatham County when it comes to emergency services.
So as it relates to, so that's a different pot of money. Again, Chatham Emergency Services is a private entity. Through a relationship with the county and the city, the county took on the full responsibility of 911 services. Now, that is something that does need a lot of work, and I'm on record having talked about that since I got in office. You can.
So what part of your budget do you classify the 911 service?
E911, it has its own section.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so 911 has its own section. The challenge that we've been dealing with is something just like everybody else, in that with 2 things. We have an antiquated system. We are in the midst of putting in a new system, CAD RMS, that will integrate all of the municipalities onto the same communication system, because right now you've got Garden City on one, Pooler on another, Savannah on another. It's very antiquated. Another issue that we have had is training staff, especially in the midst of COVID. You've had people who are out. We have a very small 911 center, so you couldn't have a whole gang of folks in there. And then to train somebody, you're looking at least 6 months to train somebody. So 911 is a problem. I've said that.
You want to look the personnel issues that they have as well. I think that's a big part of the problem that can be rectified and sort of help out.
Yeah, and
but
I agree, Alderwoman Gibson Carter, and that's why I'm extremely proud to say that we as a commission in 2021 have reestablished transparency and accountability as it relates to our county manager. So we can hold the people who are actually making those things fire. We can hold them accountable now for it. I think, again, Mr. Manager Michael Kegler is fit for the job. He's been there for a minute. He's not oblivious to what's going on. And that is something that we are working on. Again, it's something that I've been speaking on for a lot, because no one should ever call 911 and not have an answer. But when you hear, because I mean, this could be somebody's scariest moment in their life, and to have nobody on the other side of that call is terrifying. I could only imagine.
But it's a real issue, and I've experienced it on behalf of others. I've called 911 for twice in the last year. So hopefully, with that big money grab y'all made through law, hopefully we can get some stuff done. And just to add to the list, and I now remember what I wanted you to talk about tonight before I ask you about some of the things you're working on, which includes a meeting that you have coming up. as a result of the additional revenue you all are receiving out of the loss negotiations, some of the areas that the chairman mentioned when he was advocating for the increase was talking about the amount you pay for the criminal justice system. And God knows Savannah uh, contributes a great deal to that. But again, the county is just as responsive. And what I want to say to that end, the county historically has done very little when it comes to contributions to nonprofit organizations in comparison to the amount that the city of Savannah offers to nonprofits through our community services grant programs. So it is my hope that you all recognize that the greater benefit of reducing the episodes of individuals entering the criminal justice system come with the support that we give to our social programs through our nonprofit organizations. And in his talk, Commissioner Whiteley, the one thing I did not hear before you seek tax citizens or to create a tax for individuals, um, as leaders, we must first look at wasteful spending. On the county side and the city side, no one ever talked about wasteful and unnecessary spending. And that's what we have to be honest about. And I hope that you could match the philosophy of or adopting cutting wasteful spending as a goal as you all go forth in this budget process, because that is really and truly the only way we can, as citizens, um, be respected, be accepting of any of these proposals, especially when you see dynamics that are consistent with the individuals who were marketing T-Splosh the hardest are the same individuals who are a part of the revolving door and legacy contracts on your agenda and my agenda and the Board of Education agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The individuals who are marketing for T-Splosh are the individuals who are contributors to your chairman's campaign and the City of Savannah's mayor campaign. And so when you see those elements and when you see those dynamics, it causes a huge amount of distrust. And you see where it's this continuous game of the people who really run this city and this county.
Well, Alderwoman Gibson Carter, I get it, and I could understand where that mistrust is coming from, and I share it to some degree. All right, but one thing I will tell you, we can check people's disclosures as we should, but we more importantly need to check their actions. We could check their disclosures, but check how they operate when they're sitting in those seats. Check how they operate in these meetings. Check how they operate when they're sitting in these dioceses. Check how they vote on certain things. If, some of the victories that I've shared that we've done, we've had here in the county, check those votes, and that'll say a lot. And it may combat a narrative that might be getting spread around. Now, as it relates to nonprofit support, Chatham County Blueprint is up to over $5 million in support to our nonprofits. Now, I will say I have gone on record saying that I'd like to see some new groups because we got some of the usual suspects. But again, there's a shortage of a lot of support that some of these organizations do. And I'm sure you could appreciate that if we talk about housing, juveniles who are dealing with issues. We don't have too many entities that are doing that here locally. That's just one example. So, but we have to do a better job as a community of creating more options. And then one thing I do want to share, we have opened up our blueprint funding window. It was opened up on Friday. On February 7th, Tuesday, there will be a application workshop at 9 a.m. at the Garden City Library. Again, at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, February 7th, there will be a Chatham County Blueprint Funding Workshop that will talk about how nonprofits can get access to money in this budget season. I am on record in our budget hearings, and I'll be happy to share the receipts and talking about some of the wasteful spending. One thing that I know folks like to mischaracterize how I operate, but when it comes to the money, I'm very attentive because if you want to see what somebody cares about, check out their bank statements.
Mm-hmm.
So I am on record talking about how we've had some wasteful spending, and actually through a bipartisan coalition, we stopped the budget from going through my first year in office, so we can actually work on some of this stuff rather than rubber stamping a budget, which has been a continuing thing. Now, I want to also highlight the county's investments in mental health. Um, we are working directly with the state, also working with NACO to bring youth mental health initiatives as well as adult mental health initiatives. The largest mental health provider in Chatham County is Carl Griffin. It's a jail. The largest mental health provider in the country, the largest three are Cook County Jail, LA County Jail, and Rikers Island. So it is our jails that are providing mental health services. And so another thing that the county has done is teamed up using ARPA money to put together a behavioral health unit to try to say, okay, if somebody is, if a call comes out, police call comes out, and maybe it's somebody who's autistic or has some mental challenges and they're in crisis, well, we have somebody on hand who can help navigate that rather than this big black autistic child being mischaracterized as an unruly adult. So that is something else we have worked on. Another thing I want to talk about as it relates to the judiciary, I have on record again, and I'll be happy to share the receipts in supporting not only our district attorney and getting ARPA dollars to help with the backlog. The ARPA dollars have to be spent for backlog, though, and so that's a whole nother conversation. But nonetheless, we do need to support our judiciary, not only our district attorney, our probate court, when we're talking about conservatorships, when we're talking about property that hasn't been probated or wills that haven't been probated yet and stuff like that. That's probate court. We have to provide that support. And I will say, unfortunately, I'm very sad to say this. Our district attorney has been denied an opportunity to speak before the commission in public.
Let me go to that. Let
What?
me go to that. Let me go to that. Now here is the issue, and I was told that, and you just confirmed it. I got this through the wind. I didn't get it from the source. I asked Chester, who I've known since I was a child, a colleague in the ministry, to allow us to address the county commission on the issue of the Weeping Time property.
Hmm.
He refused unilaterally, just him. I've talked to several other commissioners, including yourself, who said they would be amenable to hearing us, but it's his call. And now I heard that he would not let the sitting, constitutionally elected district attorney speak to the county commission. Who does that? That makes no sense. That to me, that's outlandish. Even if you let her come in, don't want to hear what she has to say, and tell her why. But
Well, he does that in his neighborhood association meetings too. It's just tyrannical behavior.
I don't get that. And make sure you understand. I want y'all to hear this. I supported him 100% becoming the chairman. I've been just not on everything, but I've been woefully disappointed on some very key things.
Well, I'll just say, as it relates to our honorable chairman, I do sit on a commission in which Mr. Chester Ellis is our chairman, and I support him in his position at this point as a member of this team, as a member of this commission, and I'm committed to working with him to do whatever we need to do to make things happen. I won't speak about him personally because as he has faults, Reverend Small, correct me, I think it says he without sin cast the first stone or something like that. And so I'm
This ain't about sin, this about politics.
I understand that, and with all due respect,
I understand what you're saying.
I won't speak to him personally. I will say that I have been saddened that there have been instances where folks who perhaps the public should hear have not been given the opportunity to speak. But at the end of the day, we as commissioners, we're a collective,
Good enough.
There's a total of 9 of us.
That's enough.
So
You did good. But you gotta work. You gotta work with your chairman. You got. I don't mean to put you in the awkward place. You have to work with the chairman. You've got 2 more years to work.
mm,
Anybody who doesn't understand that strategically is not trying to pay attention. The fact that you come on, the fact that you answer questions, I've seen you on shows on this platform during very awkward times. So let me put on the record that ADOT Whiteley has made himself available for scrutiny and criticism. And he's done it basically whenever we've called. And I have to
Well,
applaud him for that.
Well, tonight my position was less about scrutiny and criticism and just more about just putting it out there. Where my concern for nonprofit organizations, the criminal justice system, and 911 services, if Chatham County has taken this huge money grab through the loss negotiations, there is an expectation that you all increase services, that you do better at the services that are currently being provided. Because at the end of the day, there is nothing, Commissioner Whiteley, there was not one thing uh, in the ESPLOS request as well as in the loss negotiation. There never was the word deficit. There never was the notion that you all were going in the hole or could not afford. It was only we want and we need. And there was no clear designation with regard to T-SPLOS as to the projects, at least to the priority of the projects, or giving people who were expected to pay this tax what they wanted. So all I'm asking is that you take charge, just as you did in Commissioner Kicklighter, and helping to, bring the meeting of the minds together and say, look, guys, we can do better than this. Just take charge and focus on the areas that are most adversely impacting the city of Savannah. And that's the criminal justice piece, 911 services, and more aid to our nonprofit organizations, because that's where we feel it the most. And if you will partner in me, and assuring that before we seek to tax people, that we cut out wasteful spending.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. We need to be as efficient as possible with our budgets, and I know we can be doing a better job when it comes to our budget. And that's, I've been marking up my budget book and the comprehensive annual financial review a good bit now, getting ready for budget season. I do want to say it shouldn't take loss negotiations for us to expect services from our government, though.
You
Right.
know,
Well, we're watching. We're watching.
you know
And
what happens with these, with like T-SPLOS and E-SPLOS. The question is, from my end, the people that because I deal with the least and left out. So the question from my end is minority inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pattern, it's been minority exclusion. Several years ago, maybe 22, 23 years ago, we went to the school board for minority inclusion, and they put in a minority inclusion liaison in that contract process. We went from 1.5% of the vending and contracts to 11% in 2.5 years. We had another election. A new superintendent came in. They took it back in-house. In 2 more years, we was back at 1.5%. So it's policy. It's really policy, and it has to do with the will, political will. Now, when Alicia and Kesha and Burnett and them first got elected, and they came up with that hotel and motel tax, they asked for a small portion of that money to be earmarked for minority inclusion. The people decided they'd forego getting the whole thing rather than carve out the minority inclusion part. Wait a minute, if that wasn't bad enough, They did it again. So, in other
That's
words,
not my understanding, though, Reverend Smiles.
okay,
Well, and my understanding was that there was, I understand, a drive for minority inclusion, but who, when it came to who was going to facilitate that, it was somebody who wasn't even based out of Chatham County.
That's not true.
That's
bow.
so. I
Totally
appreciate
not
the correction.
true.
Now,
That is
that's
Yeah. See, hey, what'd you say, Reverend Smiles? Bad news travels fast, and the good news don't get nowhere.
wait a
that's
minute. But
totally not
that's
true. We didn't even
we
get
didn't
to that
include the
part.
lie in that equation between the bad news and the good news. The lie is even faster than the bad news, and
We never
therefore
arrived at that
Keisha
point.
Keisha can explain to you emphatically what really happened because she was in the center of that process.
Well, so I'll ask this as a sitting board member for the Greater Savannah Black Chamber of Commerce. Would you support the Greater Savannah Black Chamber of Commerce benefiting from a percentage of the hotel motel tax if there was an increase now, Alderwoman Gibson Carter?
That was one of the entities we were advocating for.
Mhm.
So it was like, who else would it have been?
Yeah,
That's a ridiculous notion, Commissioner Whiteley. That's just simply not true.
that was
Nonetheless,
Well, I
we only
appreciate you clearing it up.
yeah, we only have a few minutes left, and I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge one of the questions that is important because I've worked a great deal with West Chatham community, and so have you. And the
Mhm.
primary issue that we are having is the issue of annexation of property into Savannah, ultimately leaving residents in Chatham County vulnerable and subjected to warehousing, manufacturing plants, as well as industrial highways, if you will. And so you have worked with me, with the community of West residents in the West Chatham community. But what is it that Chatham County can do that you see? Because essentially, once the property is annexed into Savannah, during that short period of time, there is a window where those county residents have zero representation because they then are no longer in your uh, purview of authority or representation. And then our representative is like MIA. So
Well,
how is
so we're experiencing that right now in the Georgetown community. West Chatham is another example where there have been annexations and a
and
lot of
I voted, for the record, I have voted no to almost every single annexation request.
and so the county there has been a change in law in the last session that gives the counties a little bit more teeth because this has been a issue we've been battling for years. Because what happens is we've seen it even here recently. Somebody comes before us for a zoning change, comes before the county. We deny their zoning change. They go and annex into the city and get that zoning change, which reduces the county's revenue. But the challenge that we have seen in a lot of cases, the annexation will take place to all the valuable land, but then leave the road to the county
Hmm.
or leave certain areas, ditch maintenance and stuff like that to the county. And so now with the law change, there is a new arbitration process that goes through the Department of Community Affairs. I know our chairman had recently gone to the training for that. I had a dentist appointment. I was scheduled to go myself, but nonetheless, there's going to be a little bit more pushback, and so folks can expect that. As it relates to that property over there on Wild Heron Road that was annexed a while back, even off of Bush Road out in the West Chatham area, which is a big part now of my district, effective January 1st. A lot of these annexations have happened in the past, but just kind of sat undeveloped until now. And so we're now seeing the challenges. Again, I'm a person who believes in being proactive when it comes to infrastructure. Yes, we have to create the need or display the need when it comes to GDOT build out. So 204, if it's a state road, we the county can't just go in and change it. But those areas that are around it, Chevis Road, for example, Wild Heron and things of that nature, we could be proactive in trying to make changes to these areas that are positive for the citizens. But you and I have been on the same page as it relates to make sure that the citizens are at the table. If we're gonna have these changes, we understand growth is happening, but don't grow behind my back when I live next door. I need to be a part of the discussions. I need to be a part of what's going on. I need to know. And oftentimes, we may find out there's some things that are left out. So when, as us elected officials are reading our staff reports, there may be something that's left out that could be very vital to our decision. So we have to do a better job, I think, of again being proactive. We have to do a better job of holding those administrators accountable as it relates to how this process is going. And we as elected officials got to do our homework. We got to do our homework. We can't just expect somebody to tell us what to do. We have to read on our own. We have to go and talk to the citizens on our own. We have to go see what their thoughts are, because sometimes you might find that a sign that was telling you that there was going to be a zoning hearing might be hidden in the woods. Or you might,
Yeah, we know how that part went. And
right,
let's be
we
clear,
walked it.
when you talk about growth, we're talking about growth that is not benefiting everybody, because from what I've seen, these developments as of late, it's all labor and low wage jobs. And so the bar is very low. And to me, that is not considered growth when you're talking about creating jobs for people and it's forklift drivers, or creating jobs for people and the wages are still under $18 an hour. So it's like it's the growth is for the developers and the people who own these entities. The growth is not for our communities in West Chatham and Georgetown. They are going to be the ones who suffer with the environmental pollution, with the heavy traffic, as well as other invasions that these developments cause. Pastor Small?
Let me ask a simple question for the audience tonight. How many people know how Savannah looks on a map? How many people really know how the city of Savannah, you know how the shape of Georgia?
It's
You,
crazy. You would be surprised at how it looks. It's weird.
I was trying to see if I could show you.
Mm-hmm.
In those purple lines, that's the city of Savannah. If you notice, there are some of those lines that are not touching.
Right.
And then between Pula, the word Pula and Savannah, that's a road that continues the city property. That all of what you're looking at is illegal.
In the Highlands, when you look at the area,
this is illegal. You cannot, under Georgia law, you cannot have a city in different islands. It has to be contiguous, and the contiguity cannot be a road. That's in.
What's the nickname of our county?
Cheatham County. I'm sorry, Adot. I still love you, brother.
And look, I signed up for it. I ain't mad.
But that was
the great state of Cheatham County.
But think about this now. We've got all these experts. We've got people who are expert in government and city laws. We had a city manager. We had city attorneys, and they all went along with all these annexations that were absolutely against the law and quietly done without the public really knowing. And all of the new annexations, the public's not really involved in this. So the city, I would say it looks like a dramatic, but the city of Savannah, Garden City, Port Wentworth, and Pula have gotten together at different times and done these annexations, knowing full well they were doing it behind closed doors.
And guess what? You have the same engineering firms, you have the same all of them are in on it on the take. And MPC, don't make me start with MPC because that's just a rubber stamp pass through organization right now. But that's for the show. Listen, guys, the producers.
Can I just want to share my community meeting.
Okay.
If you don't mind, just want to let the public know, especially the residents of District 6, on February 7th, I will be holding a community discussion. It will be at the County Commission Chambers, which is 124 Bull Street. So come on down, pull up, check us out on the second floor at 124 Bull Street. We'll be there from 6:30 to 8. This meeting will also be streamed on Facebook as well as available on the community channel. And I'll be talking about some of the things that are taking place in the 6th district, some of the things we've been able to get done, some things I'd like to get done over these next 2 years. And hopefully folks will like me enough to reconsider me in 2 years. Additionally,
are you running for chair in 2 years?
My focus is on the 6th district at this point. So
you're wrong for that, Kesha.
Yeah. My focus is on the 6th district. You know, I haven't even thought about that. I think, you know, where I'm at now is more than enough to make an impact on our community. So if whatever happens later is what God will tell me what to do, what's best for my family and what God has in store for us. But at this point, you know, my focus is District 6. We just changed. I just picked up Henderson. If you live in Henderson, you're in my district. I got some folks on Bush Road, both sides of 4 Argyle Road. You are now in the 6th district. So I need to make sure that everybody knows the district changes and we prepare to get as much political participation, because we are a government of the people, for the people, by the people. But the key word is people. We need y'all there. So again, please, if you do have an opportunity, tune in on February the 7th, which is next Tuesday from 6:30 to 8. We'll be, or pull up to 124 Bull Street. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and bring it all. I don't.
And that is just before Legislative Day at the Capitol, right?
Yeah, I think Savannah Chatham Day is like the 9th, which will be that Thursday. So we'll be up there. I know there's some interesting legislation swirling around up there, so I hope folks are paying attention. I sure am. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. Always a pleasure to get to rub shoulders with the Reverend Dr. Leonard Smalls, and I appreciate it. It's cheaper to keep me. No, that's not my slogan, player. That's not my slogan. No, it's not cheaper to keep me. You know, you got to invest your time and your energy, because we're going to do the work.
Listen, you got to love Ivan. I want to thank Ms. Walker, Pastor Betty Jones, Ivan Cohen. Thank you guys for your comments tonight and chiming in, and to all of you who posted your comments. Those are just a couple of the ones that I caught. Pastor Small, as always, thank you for contributing your time to the effort. I don't know what we would do without men like you and Lorraine Benton, who stand up, and speak out, and hold the powerful accountable. And so we really appreciate you guys. We need about 10 more of you. And Commissioner Adot, we want to thank you for accessibility, sensibility, and for just being an ear and picking up the phone whenever we call and responding to constituents that I send to you. So the 6th District is fortunate to have you there. So we are grateful for the support.
Well, thank you. I got a compliment from Kesha. Boy, that just made my
That'll work. That'll help you.
Well, you know, so the thought that I throw water on drowning men is simply not true. I will light a fire to one who's burning, though. But
I'll put more gas on it.
Listen, we thank you all. Thank you all for helping us take care of this part of Savannah. And without further ado, I want to bid you all farewell and good night. I love you, Savannah.
Y'all have a good evening.
I like that. like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. Like this. I like this.